Welcome to the Empowering Transformation series, how to release stress and past trauma, have a peaceful mind, and have the power to move forward. Hi, I'm Lori K. Coleman, and I have created this series for you so that you can have new insights to handle the challenging times that you experience in your life. And today I have Marnie Kuhns with me. She is a best-selling author and certified Simply Healed practitioner who uses music and creativity to mentor your past barriers, fears, and doubts to discover, create, and deliver your soul's song, which is the mission, message, or purpose you are on this earth to live. Marnie, thank you so much for taking time for us today.
Thank you, Lori.
Oh, yes, so I would like us to start, if we could, for you to define what you call divine compensation and what you learned from a book that I believe was called Divine Love. Can we start there?
Yeah, and I believe it was the Breakthrough Experience, exactly, that is the book that I got it from. Divine compensation is basically a concept of within everything that we deal with in life, there is an equal and opposite amount of what we would call good or bad, challenge or support. And when we come upon something that's really challenging for us and difficult for us, we need to start looking around, because within that situation is an equal and opposite good. There's a compensating blessing. I explain it to my children this way. They're video gamers. And, you know, when you're playing a video game and you come across a challenge, you got to beat the enemy or whatever, there's always some treasure, you know, an extra life or an extra reward or coin or something you collect for overcoming that challenge in the game. And it's the same way with life. It's just that a lot of times we get so focused in on the challenge or what isn't right that we're missing the compensating blessing. So it's just a matter of shifting and looking around and going, hey, where's the blessing in this?
Yes, for sure, for sure. And is that the same? I would like to hear about a time in your life when you had experienced something hard where you saw that play out for you and how you applied that.
Right. I went through an unexpected divorce. I didn't see it coming. And so it's like my husband decided he didn't want to be married anymore. And 4 days later, my mother died. And I was really close to my mom. And it was very difficult for me to lose her simultaneously with this situation. And at the same time, you know, I was kind of like kicked out, you know, and had to go live with my dad, help take care of him a little bit at the same time. And just a lot of things went wrong all at once. I was just on top of that. Car broke down, computer crashed, everything like right at the same time. And I'm like, what the heck? And so that's when I was introduced to that book, The Breakthrough Experience. And it helped me start to look at the situations in my life and see that even the things that, say, my husband did were serving me, that there was something in that was actually serving me. And I went through the process within the book and was able to, within 3 months, I was able to tell him thank you for letting me go and give him a hug goodbye and said, you were a blessing in my life when you were in it, and you were a blessing in letting me go. I understand now why it had to happen.
Wow.
And it was just amazing. And then with my mother, because I was in this zone of looking for, okay, what are the compensating blessings? I began to see that nothing is ever really lost, okay? It just changes form. So the things that we care about are the things that we value. They may not all be coming from this one person anymore, you know, but they may be coming from other people or other things, you know. It scatters. It's not lost, it's just scattered. And so I began to look for my mother everywhere. And I would hear her in the voice of a friend, or I would see her, you know, in nature somewhere, or there was just the flowers that were blooming made me think of my mother. There was everything around me, I started to see her. And so it helped me transition losing her, but I don't feel like I've lost her because I still feel her presence with me. It's interesting. Um, and so there's just this way of looking at life that's different. And the more I started there, I came to this one point, it was like March is when all of this happened. And June, I was staying at a friend's. And I woke up one morning and realized, even though I didn't have a car, I didn't have anywhere to live, my business was on low vibe because I'd put it on low vibe to make that marriage work. And all of these different things. I had nothing, basically. I mean, I still have my kids and everything. But I woke up and I told her that morning, I said, I have everything. I have everything I need. And I didn't just say that like, oh, I'm going to say that. I really felt it at a core level that, it might not be mine, but my friend was letting me borrow her car when I needed it. I was staying with her. She put a roof over my head, I had everything I needed in all these different ways. And something shifted that day and my life completely changed from that point. And I'm now happily married to a fantastic guy who is everything that I ever wanted and more. And it's, everything that I lost was brought back to me. I mean, it's a miracle story. I will never doubt that God will keep his promises or that he will follow through when he says he's going to do something for you. Because on every promise and restored everything that I ever lost.
Wow. Well, you mentioned the word values, and I know there's been times in my life where I desire something like, well, can you give an example of a value, whether it's, you lost the value of love or the value of connection? Can you give specifically how, you feel like you want to have this value in your life, that it's imperative to have in your life? How do you find that elsewhere? Can you give a little bit more examples specifically, or other examples of what values you found elsewhere?
Right. So for me, the value was having someone who believed in me, was very important. I started to realize how valuable that was to me. And interestingly enough, I started to realize that spouse that didn't want me really didn't believe in me, but my mother did believe in me. I was with my dad, he believed in me. And I started to look around at, okay, what are some people who really believe in me? And there were friends that showed up in my life who was like, you can do this, you're going to be okay. There were people that encouraged me. My mother also represented encouragement, and that meant a lot to me. People who acknowledge me, that's a value. And I was getting an overwhelming surge of support from people. There were people praying for me that I've never met in person. It was just huge, the outpouring of love and support. It didn't come from, say, my mom or that spouse anymore. I still think it came from my mom. I still think she was still sending it to me. She got me through that. But it was not in this physical world. You know what I'm saying? So I started to look around and see that the acknowledgement, support, believing in me, encouraging me were key values. The freedom is a very core value for me. And I remember the day that he told me that, and I went in my room, or the room, and I knelt down and I prayed, and I was like, I don't get this. I don't understand this. I thought I was supposed to be married to this person. And I had this most undescribable feeling of peace come over me and freedom. Like, you are being set free of this situation. This situation is not for your highest good. I mean, it came in that instant. Now, I doubted it, and I still went through pain and everything. But as I look back on it, I realized that God was there in that moment telling me, I'm setting you free from this. It's not in your highest good. Wow. And had it not played out the way it did, I might have been hanging around trying to make something work that wasn't going to work.
So you mentioned that it didn't necessarily take, so you got the peace, but there were times where you still had the painful emotions. Can you talk to us about how did you work through that pain? I mean, I'm sure you still, ah,
Yeah.
whether
Yeah.
it's the shock or the pain, or I'm sure there were a myriad of different things that
Yeah.
went through.
Yeah. Um, well, interesting thing was like logically I could think through, okay, I think this is going to be for the best and I get those feelings. But then I would be just working, not thinking about it at all, just working. And I would have these panic feelings that would just be like, like, come over me. And I'm like, what is this? Why am I doing this? But the body feels and it wants to process what you're going through, and if you don't, there's a book by Carol Truman about, feelings buried alive never die. If you don't process those feelings, they get stored in your body. And so even though I was trying to, really focus on God and focus on looking for the good and everything, something in my body was just like, what am I going to do without my mother for the rest of my life? How mortifying that I gave my heart to this person who I thought loved me and didn't. How embarrassing, you know. But I had to root down to that. Didn't come up with that feeling. That what the feeling was is just this tightness, and I just started noticing my body. Just this. Okay, where am I feeling this in my body? What's going on here? And then I just sort of, I'm a Simply Healed practitioner. So I was just kind of like, okay, what is this? What's this emotion? What's going on with it? And realized in this particular instance, it was the embarrassment, just this mortification, how humiliating. I thought we were great, and it was not, and, I was able to verbalize that. I wrote it out, I verbalized it, and it went away after I verbalized it. Like, really let myself own the fact that that was embarrassing to me, that was just humiliating. So write it out, share it with people that I felt I could share it with, and just let it go. And it, that feeling didn't come back. Those sudden panics, they started to just subside and go away. Another thing that I learned during that time is just to allow yourself to feel that emotion for like a minute. Just if you want to set a timer for a minute, I'm going to feel revenge and mad and ticked. I'm just going to, this emotion, I deserve to have this emotion. It's okay that I have this, I knew I wasn't going to stay in that and that I really didn't want revenge. You know what I mean? But I had to feel it for whatever reason. I wanted to feel that emotion and let it process through, and to know that, okay, it's a finite period. I'm going to feel that. I'm going to let myself vent that so that then, okay, now it can go on. And it let me release that anger and that resentment and stuff by just allowing it, acknowledging that, hey, I have a right to feel this way if I want to feel this way. It doesn't mean I have to act on it or, do anything that's going to harm anyone because of that feeling. And I don't have to get stuck in it forever either. I can just allow it to be there, acknowledge it, let it pass on through.
How can you trust that? I mean, some things are just so big and you're like, okay, I will allow myself to feel this fully for 1 minute. How do you help yourself believe that, okay, I can really pull myself out? And when the timer goes ding, and I know that I've done this for me, but I want to hear how you trust that process.
Well, I'd be curious to know how you trust it. But I was at such a point that I was so broken that I was willing to risk anything. I don't know how to explain it. I say I was broken, but it was the most liberating feeling to have that level of brokenness. I don't know how to explain, but it allowed me to do some pretty courageous things because I'm like, what else have I got to lose? I don't have anything else to lose. So I'm just going to feel this and I'm going to allow myself to feel it. And once I did it once with, say, an emotion that wasn't perhaps something I was so scared of getting lost in, then I realized, hey, I can't. Okay, yeah, that was a sufficient amount of time to express that emotion. So maybe try it with some emotions that aren't ones you're afraid you're going to drown in, but ones that you can, you know, um, just play with it a little bit and see. I think you'll see you can't really hang on to it with that level of intensity and really allow it to come through.
Yeah, it does dissipate. I remember one time, I have this habit of bringing people into my house to live with us. And I'd be like, guys, I feel in my heart that we should invite so-and-so in. And sometimes they're complete strangers. It's not a healthy thing, but I have felt incredibly strongly that that was something we ought to do. And so anyway, done it twice. And I told my husband, no matter who I bring, you're to say no. So anyway, but after the second time, and this person was going to go live with my dad and help my dad do chores and things like that. And anyway, it was when my dad and he left, and I found myself collapsing on the stairs. It's like I get into the habit of trying to rescue people, which is not healthy, but it gave me purpose, which is anyway. But when they left, I collapsed with feeling so alone and empty, and it combined with my dog had passed away maybe 6 months earlier. I'm not really sure about the timing of that, but I realized I had never in my life been alone. So my kids are at school, husband's at work, and this kid that came and lived with us, he drove me batty, to be honest. He really drove me batty. But and I drive him to doctor appointments and help him. But he was someone to interact with, and I wasn't alone. And that feeling of aloneness just flooded me, and I literally collapsed in tears of feeling. It brought in abandonment and alonement. Alonement? That's not even a word. But after a minute of just sobbing and struggling and literally having a panic attack where I could barely breathe, it was getting bigger. And I was just trying to notice where it was in my body. And I had my phone with me. And through my tears, I reached out to a friend. And I said, please find some music to send to me right now to listen to. And so reaching out to that person and them responding and me being able to listen to music, I was able to finish processing that through my body.
Oh, yeah.
But that was one of the, well, I guess I've had a half dozen times. I have some, when I read the book, Feelings Buried Alive, Never Die, I read that 25 years ago. My mother-in-law gave it to me when I had all these physical symptoms and was really struggling. And I read it and I'm like, don't agree, not even. Because it's basically putting a lot of personal responsibility on you for the situation that you're in. And I just couldn't handle that. And then when I read it a couple years later, I'm like, absolutely, yeah, that's truth.
Yeah.
Because I started, even though I didn't believe it, my heart couldn't stop reading it. And God was telling me to apply the teachings there, and so I'm like, all right, well, I don't believe in it, but I don't believe in everything she has to say, but obviously God thinks that there are things that are good. But it was my paradigms making me think that wasn't good. It wasn't that her work wasn't good. It was my subconscious programming trying to keep me from moving forward. Anyway, it's quite fascinating. But
I love that you brought up music, because music definitely can shift you out. That's really what got me through my mother's death and everything. Is my dad and I looked at each other one day and we said, we need to get into music. And we started just doing like music jams. I play the piano and my cousin got me singing, and he played the guitar and my dad plays the harmonica. So we would just start and go to these music jam things, and getting into music really helped me heal my heart. It's huge.
Yeah, no, music is so powerful, so powerful. And it can raise your vibration to a different level and help you pull out.
Yeah.
And it can also help you go deep in and feel, it's like you need to be very mindful and intentional about what you're choosing to listen to. And it can really make a difference for sure. Yeah. I recall you talking about broadcast messages. Can you describe to our audience what that means if some people don't know what that is? And then I have another question for you. So what is a broadcast message?
Well, I learned this concept years ago from Leslie Householder, who wrote The Jackrabbit Factor, personal mentor of mine. And she talks about how our answers are basically on a frequency, like a radio station. So if we've got a problem or we've got a goal, we've got something we're working toward, there's a certain vibration to that thing, that answer, or that idea or that goal. And it's broadcasting, if you will. Heaven is broadcasting the answers that we need. And our job is basically to just tune in to that vibration, tune in to that channel. It's like radio signals are in the room all the time, but not until you put this radio on the station do you pick up, the music.
Right. Yeah.
So there are certain frequencies I think we can get into where we're more attuned to those broadcasts. And it could be through meditation or prayer or, just quieting your mind, shutting out the world. Music can put you totally on that station when you listen to the appropriate music to do so. And moving anything that's in the way or obstructing that channel, like the static in between, like when I was in a state of wanting revenge for what my ex-husband did, well, that's not a vibration that's going to pull me a whole lot of answers. I realize, okay, I've got to process this through, but I'm not going to live in that state. I've got to get to forgiveness. I knew that unless I can get to forgiveness, I'm not going to get on the station that's going to bring me a better life. So whatever it takes to let go of that static in the way that keeps you from hearing the broadcast, letting that go, whatever doesn't serve you anymore. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm.
Oh, thank you. Oh, it's like my mind went one way and another way, and I'm like, oh. So I'm going to do a diversion. You brought up the values again, and living in our values is so huge. So like all of this, I get very frustrated with technology, with the physical damage that has happened to my brain from rolling a car and being around toxic chemicals. My brain, oh, my sweet brain, it has a challenge. And then my sensitive nature makes it very hard to be in front of computers with the EMFs, and my brain just shuts down. And so, but I have a value of living in peace. So when I'm in front of the computer and I'm like, this is not working, and I'm just like, am I living in my value of what I value? No, I'm not. So I step away and I go find an activity that brings me that value that I want to live in. So, and there was one time, like with my husband, we've been married, I forget how many years, 31 years, 32 years, a while. So a couple years ago, I'm like, sweetheart, we have the most beautiful marriage of comfort. I want one of vitality. And he's like, ooh, that sounds nice. But then, so I wanted to connect with him more deeply. And so one day, all the kids were gone and it was a Saturday. And I'm like, hey, sweetheart, what are you doing? The kids are gone. Why don't we spend some time together? And he's like, oh, well, I wanted to go work in the garden. And my heart, I'm just like, oh, okay. And it's okay that he had a goal of working in the garden. I mean, we live in Phoenix, and the earlier that you work, the better off you are. But I had this goal of connecting with my husband, of having time to talk, sitting next to him. And I just really wanted to try and put the effort to connect. Well, that value of connection wasn't happening So I found appropriate ways to feel that value, to FILL, feel it. And so my daughter, she still needed to be taken somewhere. So I said something to my husband before I drove my daughter somewhere. And so anyway, I dropped her off at some church people's houses that I didn't know well, but they were in a larger organization. And so I actually went inside with her and chose to connect with these new ladies that I had never met before. And I spent 30 minutes visiting with them while the youth were playing in their swimming pool in the backyard or whatever. And that I filled that value of needing to connect.
Yeah.
And then I was able to go back home and then express to my husband, like, that hurt my heart. And it's okay that you have your own, but I was able to then express, after feeling myself, because if you go to the person and you're in need and lack, then that's not cool, because you're coming from a different vibration. But if you feel that value in another appropriate way, then you can come back being whole and have a conversation that's healing and helpful.
And I think what you're saying ties back perfectly to that concept of divine compensation and divine love, because you're realizing that you can't control from where your values are met. And people come in and out of your life. People die, people move on or whatever, but your values can still be met. And so it's like, okay, open your eyes, look around. Where else can you get those values met from? Or where can you set an intention? And I think that's a big part of getting on the broadcast channel, the appropriate broadcast, is to figure out, okay, what is it that I value? And I want to show up today in connection.
Yes.
Show up in today in acknowledgement or in understanding or freedom or whatever value you want to show up in and you want to create that day. You put yourself on the channel for that, and then your eyes get opened and you start to see where that value comes to you from different places. So that story of that you shared.
Well, and then also having like an intention. So my sweet husband, I love him so much. I started scaring him every time I wanted to have a conversation, because I took some coaching classes and they were teaching some different things of how to verbalize. And so I would go to him and I'd say, hey, I have the intention that, we can both understand each other clearly. Do you have a moment to talk? And then if he didn't, we'd find a time that we could. But starting this statement that my intention is that you can understand me, but also that I understand you. And so that I'm not trying to force my husband to be something that he is not. I'm trying to accept him where he is and understand him and have him understand me. And in fact, we chose that I needed to experience the value of freedom more. And I told him, I said, I have got to feel alive. I have to feel alive. I was struggling with depression that would go into just wanting to end things, and so for me to experience feeling alive. And so I chose to travel to Utah to be with people that are kind of like just my tribe, that are lighthearted and think like I do. And I'd take these classes that would uplift me. And it would look like me leaving for 3 or 4 days every quarter. But I came back renewed and refreshed. And he was okay with me gaining friendships and experiencing this freedom within the paradigm that we had agreed upon. And always honoring my marriage and not ever, but I could have friendships with boys, guys or men or whatever you call those people. I was never comfortable having friendships with men. And yet, through that, it actually healed a lot of my father issues, which I had overlaid on top of my husband, which were nothing to do with my husband whatsoever. And it was all healing as, these men came into my life and helped with that. And anyway, it's just friendships that are wonderful. Yeah.
Great. Oh.
But Okay, now back to the previous thing. You were talking about the broadcast messages, and I want to hear what you think, what nature is broadcasting. What is it saying?
Right. So just a little brief story here. This is about 2012. I'd done a book launch, and they're very intense and everything, and I'd spent the whole day in front of the computer. It was going really well, but you know how sitting in front of a computer drains you and everything. And so I was just feeling so I decided to go out for a walk, and we live on a beautiful piece of property, and I'm walking it, beautiful day, gorgeous, wind on my face, breeze, And the more I walked, the more I just felt all of that just drain off of me. And I felt rejuvenated and loved and cared for. And I realized that all of nature is broadcasting a signal of, I love you, come to me, I can heal you. Love you, to me, I can heal you. And there is that healing that I believe personally comes from Christ. It's his light that fills the universe, that is broadcasting that signal of come to me. I love you, come to me, I can heal you. And so nature is a great way to heal and connect and get out of whatever stuck emotions that you may have as well.
Yeah. That makes me think of unique ways that God can speak to us. I mean, through nature is a way that God can speak to us.
Mm-hmm.
What are different ways that you know of, excuse me, that that people feel that communication? Because there are many different ways that we each experience it.
I think one of the most powerful ways is through our creativity. Whether it's music or art or writing is big for me. If I'm writing out on paper, that I'll get a flow of inspiration that comes when I'm writing. But everybody's different, their creativity. Some people are doing crafts or sewing or whatever, and that quiets their mind enough to be able to hear. So creativity is huge, I think. And music, as we've talked about, some people are like, they'll have thoughts that just come into their mind, like a clear thought. And that's kind of how I am. Some people just know. They don't know how they know. They just know, like there's this knowing that comes in. Other people maybe might feel like if you hear something that's true, it might make your eyes tear up, or it might make your body get a tingly feeling all over when you hear something that resonates with, a true principle.
Mm-hmm.
There's some people actually hear auditory words in their minds, or maybe not even, it sounds auditory to them, So there's just different ways people get it.
Yeah, I've heard someone call it truth bumps,
Truth bump. Yeah. The hair standing up on my arms. I know that's, it's like, yeah.
Oh, I know with me, I've been so slow. Sometimes it's like I'll hear something in my mind, and I'm like, oh no. I remember as a young mother, this was it might have been my fourth pregnancy, third, I don't know, I get lost in it all. But anyway, I was determined to do some laundry. And it was at the basement, and I was carrying my boys' laundry up the stairs. And I had the thought, and it was like within a week of having my third child, that's what it was. And I had the thought, don't do this. I'm like, I can carry a laundry basket up the stairs. Oh. But it was when I was so sick, I got down to 95 pounds and I lost all my muscles, basically. Oh, wow. And so I'm very, very weak. And even though I'm not that skinny anymore, I just have never been able to regain my muscle strength. And so it was very hard for me to lift up that basket, and I plopped it on each stair. Well, you don't do that after just having a baby. Uh-huh. And by the time I got up to the top of the stairs, I literally felt things fall inside of me. Uh-huh. And it changed my life. And I'm like, when am I going to start learning to listen? I was so anxious with myself. It's like, what has to happen before I start listening to what is in my head? Whether it makes sense or whether I have my own plan, I want to show that I'm productive, I want to, so sometimes the thoughts, you can sit and argue with it, but it's what you're supposed to listen to. And it's sometimes hard to Anyway, it's taken me a long time to figure it out.
Yeah.
After that time, I'm like, okay, I will now listen. I will listen to the thoughts that do not make sense. Because I didn't know that you should not carry heavy things after having a baby.
They didn't tell you that? Shame on them. They should have told you that.
They should have told me that you don't carry anything heavier than your baby.
Yeah. That's what they tell me every time.
So anyway, but that's a thought story. But our time is gone. So Marnie, I know, oh my goodness, your gift that you have for us is so gracious. And can you speak to that? And then I will let you go.
Okay. Yeah. I did this course when all of the pandemic started because I really felt like people needed to connect with the spirit to feel like they could get direction on what's right for them, because we're navigating against invisible enemy here, and you need to be able to, you're dealing with things you can't see. And so help from the unseen would be extra helpful during this time. So I put together this, it's a 12 lesson course, and it's you can do like one lesson a week, or you can go really fast, and it's called Spirit-Led Life Masterclass, and it's at your own pace. In there, I did it with a live Q&A every week, so you can watch even the Q&As with the people that I did live and get their questions and their comments and how they're applying it. And then pretty soon I'm going to be starting up and do 2 live classes every month for people to hop on with their Q&A stuff. So I was just giving myself a little break with that because that was intense for about 12 weeks all of there. But anyway, it's at ignitepoint.com, and you can get in there and get started with it and just work through the video. They're little short videos, not very long things, and you can just work through as many as you feel like. Just, if you just want a inspiration for today, watch something for 3 to 5 minutes, and there you have it, or you can just keep watching, however you want to do.
Oh, thank you, Marnie. And there will be a link for people to opt into that to receive that gift underneath the video here. So thank you. I appreciate your time so very much. And it's so wonderful to get connections with people and have resources be made available. I really want to help people to connect so that they can make it through the challenging times. And so,
we need that heavenly help, all that heavenly help we can get, for sure.
Absolutely.
And the connection with each other as well. I mean, I think that's so important.
Yes, connection is important. Yeah. So, well, with teary eyes, I would like to thank my audience for listening today, and I hope that your day is filled with peace and love, and that you can find ways to bring laughter into it too. Bye-bye.